Welcome to Masters of Innovation, a brand new concept in talk show TV, where we take business leaders from similar industries for a sit-down social lunch. We pop the corks and let the cameras roll. Tonight, we're recording our roundtable at the Southern Sun, Catherine Street, a sanctuary of bliss in the heart of Sandton. Amid landscaped gardens, Southern Sun Catherine Street Hotel is the ideal choice for business and leisure travelers alike. Only 30 minutes from Johannesburg's O.R. Tambo International Airport, the convenient location provides easy access to the most important business destinations, including the Sandton Convention Centre, the best upmarket shopping malls, and the most popular entertainment destinations in Johannesburg. This fabulous 4-star hotel offers 122 well-appointed, spacious ensuite rooms, easy dining, and the opportunity to relax at the hotel's inviting outdoor pool. Tonight's guests on the show include Randall Abrahams, PJ Powers, J Something, and advocate Nhlanhla Sibisi. Your hosts are Charlene Munalol and Nozi Pombandra.
Hello everyone and welcome to Masters of Innovation. Again, it's one of those really exciting shows where we begin to look at how technology has increasingly influenced, impacted and integrated into different sectors. And today we're talking about the music industry and how technology has begun to influence and change the music industry. We're going to be looking at both the positive and the negatives of that conversation. But I think more importantly is getting your personal insights, because the people we have around the table today, Charlene, don't need any introduction in the South African music space. So we're all really grateful to have you here. And of course, I'm never alone. Today I am co-hosting with the GM of Huawei Technologies. Charlene, welcome.
Thank you. I've recently joined Huawei Technologies as the GM for the Consumer Business Group. That means anything smartphone, tablet, connected devices falls under my division. Our market share has grown dramatically over the last year. We've engaged in a lot of projects that are dear to South Africans, one of which is the Masters of Innovation. And we've got ambassadors like local ambassadors who are on our books to tell the Huawei story in a different way that's more relatable to South Africans.
So my name is Jay João, and a lot of people know me as J Something from MiCasa. I'm a singer and a songwriter, and I have a marketing degree which has helped me a lot in building a cool brand, which has been aligned to the amazing brand that I think Huawei is. I have the privilege of being part of the creative team. I'm creative director for the brand in Southern Africa, and had a lot of fun creating a lot of cool campaigns and cool ideas on how to make the phone and the brand look cool to the youth, I think, is the main focus.
I'm PJ Powers, or Tandega, whichever one you'd like to use. It's amazing because I sit here having had my stuff released on Bakelite, and then the next one, whatever it was, cassettes, and then CDs. And so I've done the whole thing, if you know what I mean. And now I welcome the digital age, I really do. I've got a new single out at the moment which is doing extremely well, thanks to digital.
I'm Randall. I have a background in radio. I spent a lot of time on television, worked in television production. I've worked with your next guest at the SAMAs. I was at a major record company. I've chaired RISA, and I guess I have strong opinions about a lot of things, which I imagine provides people with saying that I'm disagreeable, but I guess we'll discover that later.
Nhlanhla Sibisi did law. Actually did a number of things. Worked at Weber Wenzel, left Weber Wenzel, went to Telkom, interestingly, then joined the music industry, worked with what was then Asami, changed it to RISA, then went to the public broadcaster, and they brought me back. So then became a CEO of the South African Music Awards. From there, left, came back as the CEO of RISA. So technology has actually had a marriage, a serious marriage with the music industry. And it has brought the music industry to where we are. Yes, there are downsides to it, which I'm sure we'll get to. And also, because technology is moving so rapidly, the law is not able to keep up.
And that's the point that I wanted to get to, because I think maybe that's a good way for us to kick off our conversation and just share some of the personal insights around the table of how you have witnessed the impact of technology on the music industry, on your own career, on what the product that you've been bringing to market. And maybe a good place to start, Nhlanhla, is really to question whether intellectual property in the industry has actually kept up the pace with the technological disruption that we're seeing?
Well, firstly, it's the issue of people being able to circumvent technology. You've put in place measures to ensure that people are not able to easily pirate music, for instance, right? And you have people who are able to hack and be able to have that access and do file sharing, peer-to-peer. And this is an issue that not only affects the music industry, but affects all content providers. The consequence is you have less and less investment in content production.
The shareability that you raise as an example, the peer-to-peer sharing, how do you monetize that? How do you make sure that, you know, the song that Jay Something releases actually is monetized when Randall sends it to Nozipo? Let's open it up there. That's the ideal, but what does it look like on the ground?
The guy who started Napster said about 10 years ago, there were over 3 trillion illegal songs that had been shared on the internet.
How many years ago?
About 10 years ago. So I think that, you know, I'm going to pick up exactly what Nhlanhla says. You can imagine that if you're investing in an industry, and let's move away from the music industry to another industry that suffers the same disruption, the film industry.
Yeah.
How many movies does Hollywood make now compared to 10 years ago? How many investments do they make in a completely new idea? Very, very few. What are they putting out? Franchises. You know, we're talking about technology and we're talking about streaming in 2016, but let me just take you back a little bit to the 1990s. It's a very, very famous file sharing group. The MP3 was created by a bunch of German researchers. And a very famous, you can go and read up about them, group of file sharers in the US were able from a plant at the biggest record company in the world to steal 600 titles before pre-release. They'd figured a way to do it. And we're talking about Eminem, we're talking about those sorts of titles. And the reason that they did it wasn't to make money. They had this file sharing group was to see who'd be the first to be able to post the record before it was released. That was their big win. We need to think about the psychology of the individual, because how many people don't, everybody around this table now will say, I've got this movie for you, by the way, here you go. You want to watch it?
Exactly.
And the thought of there being an investment, of there being a return, of there being actors who will be out of work, or sound people will be out of work, or directors will be out of work, never crosses their mind. If I drove a car, I went to visit Nhlanhla, I rocked up at your house with a brand new Mercedes, you'd say, wow, Randall's a great car, your business is doing well. I say, no, not at all. I got some guy to make me this car, it's not actually a Mercedes. Or I stole it. What would he say? He'd say, I want nothing to do with you. I'm gonna call the police and you're going to prison.
There's a psychological war, but on the other hand, there's a very strong expectation on the part of consumers that music should be shareable and free. And that is the world that we live in. We're living in, with digital natives, we live digital lifestyle. And so the appreciation for the investment is somewhat not there. So how do you find the balance?
I don't think that the law is battling to keep up now. I think the law has always battled to keep up, and the law has not been interested in the music industry in the past. We all know how long it took to get Mbube's money released from Gallo. Okay, and I'm sorry, I have to shoot straight from the hip. And the reason for that is because What happens is it gets played to death on the radio, the record sales happen, it gets, the Samro royalties are there, and then the record sale, they all go to Gallo. And then between Gallo and the artist, and between Samro and the artist, there's some almighty crap that happens, and it never reaches the artist. And if you dare to venture to go straight to the record company or straight to Samro and ask them directly for a royalty statement, they say, no, we can't. We report directly to your management. Now, in my instance, my management was my record company and my publisher. Fool me, yes, but everybody's naive when they go into this industry. And I think that not so much anymore. I think because of digital, people and artists are able to be more independent. The record label is no longer the be-all and end-all of everything. I mean, I came out of a really dark personal time in my life, wanted to release an album. Universal, Randall himself, nobody was interested in ever releasing me. I released it digital and it went double gold. That's what digital did for me. Okay, digital put me back on the map. I just also want to tell you that you're going to find this hard to believe, that my very short digital career earned me more money than Jabulani did. Oh, wow. In hard cash. I've always sold in the whole of Africa. So I'm very fortunate in that I've been a Pan-African artist since Jabulani. And I remember being in Uganda where somebody came up and tried to sell me my own pirated cassette. And I said, come on, dude, man, you must be joking. I wanted to see, from the purpose, I wanted to see what selection he'd chosen. And he'd chosen a damn good selection, actually. So I ended up buying it from him. But we have never got money from Africa, ever. Everything's always been pirated. Now, I think, Jay, you'll bear me out, from a Pan-African point of view, we are receiving royalties because of the likes of MTN and because of the digital platforms.
Jay, let's bring you in. What are the big issues on the table that you think we need to be talking about?
I'm very surprised at the optimism around the table that we will ever make money from making music. I came into the industry 5 years ago. And we, as MiCasa, have been, you speak of RBTs, we've had the biggest RBT song in the history of RBTs with the song that I did with Euphonic. And it had 8.5 million downloads, and we're the biggest RBT download, and I can tell you that money is a joke. I've never been inspired by possibly making money off music sales and making music. The one thing that's inspired me with music is creating a cool brand that other brands can endorse, and that we can, that's where there's some decent money, and then off performances. Make good music and get shows. That's really where the drive is. I'm very it's refreshing, and yet it's also weird to find people that are still trying to counter piracy. I've traveled to 28 African countries in the last year for performances, and MiCasa gets sold out shows everywhere we go. And I always wondered to myself, how do these people know our music? It's a lot thanks to TV stations that play our music videos, but even songs that don't have music videos, these people know the songs. It's because it gets shared. So I hope I'm not here. I'm not here representing the music industry. I'm here representing myself. So I don't want to be held responsible. I don't have a problem with piracy. I think piracy is the shareability of music.
Advocate Sibisi, you're going to have a word.
No, exactly, because
I think RISA is going to have to get involved.
Imagine in some of the territories in the rest of Africa where there is no formal recording industry, right? Being an artist there is the most challenging thing. In fact, most people
almost impossible.
Yeah, exactly. Because there's nothing, you don't get any royalty back. You would record, in some places you would drop an album now, 2 minutes later, 2 million people have it.
I find it quite funny because it's like royalties. You speak of royalties. My band has been multi-platinum selling artists, man. We've sold over 150,000 copies of one album, and we've sold 3 of those. We've had double platinum for every album we've put out, 3. And the money that you speak of with this royalties, it's a joke.
On this whole question of royalties, and I've, having been in the record industry and having, worked with RISA, it's a really important question. I say to people, it's fine to say, but I make a lot of money out of live performances, especially on the continent. You know, people make lots of money. I say, but what if you get knocked over by a bus tomorrow? What is going to happen to your family? In Paul McCartney's divorce, one of the most famous divorces in British history, he didn't have a prenup, and everybody said, oh, he's going to be in big trouble. He was a really sharp guy, because he knew that British law said that you can only earn, if you get divorced, you can only earn any financial benefit from the period in which that person made the money. So if you were married to them from 2003 to 2013, that's the money you got. Paul McCartney was making more money of royalties from songs he'd written in the 60s than he was making from live performances or any of his new music. So his ex-wife only walked away with £20 million, when in fact, the Beatles' music being streamed, downloaded, played on radio stations, he was making hundreds of millions of pounds from his royalties.
I want to talk about the royalties chain and where it breaks down, and why is it that artists feel that they're not seeing the royalties, and why are we having a conversation about putting up protectionist
I'm not seeing the
standards?
royalties.
Okay.
I am seeing the royalties. What I'm saying is that Paul McCartney and any African artist, royalty earnings, it's like chalk and cheese, man. It's like, if I die tomorrow, my family won't be able to pay off for my house with my royalties. Never mind my car.
Okay, but can I just make one point there, though?
It's difficult.
You say they never can, but they have the opportunity to do it. If a song that you had written gets put in a Hollywood movie.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so the point to be made is, from a legal point of view, is the technical, the ability to earn a royalty, as opposed to have to being alive in order to get something from a live performance.
Environment.
Exactly.
For you as an artist community, so that you are able to earn. Yes, you might say the royalties that you get are not enough because you're comparing them, right? With your live, the money that you make from live performances. I mean, how many gigs some people have over a weekend?
If I look at how much my songs play on radio.
Right? But remember, on radio,
That's a whole nother
if you're a
can of
composer, you would get a lot from Sambro. If it is a sound recording, it's only now that needle time, what we call needle time, would start generating revenue for the music industry.
After a battle of how long?
After a battle of 10 years,
15.
with the broadcasting industry. And in fact, before then, it started 20 years ago. Now, you will start seeing money from the music that is played on radio flowing through to the industry.
You produce your own music, right?
Yes.
So you don't have a production house or a record label,
No,
right?
we did before. To start out, we were with Soul Candy Records.
But then you produce yourself.
Everything in my career has been like great. My management looked after us, and I'm saying, what I'm trying to say is that, like, if you give me 100 Rand now, I'll be very thankful for 100 Rand, because 100 Rand can buy me bread and milk. But royalties and what we're talking about, it just doesn't excite me.
Have you ever been released on hard copy?
Yes.
You have?
Physical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what have your royalties been from that? Nothing. Very low.
It just
because
depends
your
on
followers are
what's-
digital. Okay, well, let me give you an example. Brenda Fassie, to this date, is still the biggest selling artist that South Africa has ever seen. We spoke about Into the Millions. She's the biggest selling South African artist. And let me just tell you something. Brenda's royalties, thanks to Peter Snyman, who was a fantastic manager, earned millions from her music. She earned millions. What she did with it, of course, is tragic, but she earned millions. So to make a blanket statement saying that there's no money in royalties is a bit of a broad sweeping statement.
I mean, I'll just give you one other statistic, seeing that I've got a lot for you today. The number one dead celebrity on the Forbes list for last year was Michael Jackson, made up of one sale. He bought the Sony ATV catalogue of the Beatles in the 80s, and his family or his estate, whoever sold it, I think, if I'm not mistaken, back to Sony for like $750 million US.
The kids in South Africa are watching this, and they always ask me, hey man, what's my advice to get into the music? And I give them the same advice that I got. Don't do it. unless you really, really love music, man. Because if you really love music, you'll do your first 10 gigs like I did for free, and passion, and then one day you start earning some decent money if you make good music.
I absolutely agree with you. Anyone going, like you said, what about the poor guy that counts on his royalties? Nobody should ever count on money to go into the royalties. That's why I resent cash prizes for music competitions. What they should be doing is getting music, being able to get a music school. Cash is not what should be given.
There is money in royalties. What I'm saying is that as a musician, we started off this discussion talking about piracy and the shareability of music and all these things. I enjoy that music can be shared, because reality in my music career has never been a reality of making a lot of money that I can provide for my family and my family's a life.
And I think that similarly, if I may be as bold as to say what myself and Nhlanhla are saying, is protect yourself by ensuring that your intellectual property is protected.
When we look at how, I mean, technology has basically lowered the entry barriers for music. Basically, anybody can start making music now. Now, if you think about the kid in Mlazi in Durban who's come up with a really interesting beat and so on, to what extent does he have access to lawyers and being able to make sure that he's protected by the IP? The guy just wants to be heard, and the next thing somebody else is playing his song.
Even record labels, when they sign you, and nobody educates you. You speak, I think we're speaking too much ideal world, man. Just speak how it is. Like, no artist says, Universal gets an artist and they say, first of all, we're going to sit you down and we're going to teach you about music business. Never happens.
I signed my first record contract. First, my father signed it first because I was underage. When I got to 18, a record contract was given me, yes, in bold letters, consult with a lawyer. I took it home, signed it without even reading it. All I wanted was to get into the music industry. I was 18 and desperate, okay? And what I feel, what digital has done for the young guys sitting in Amlazi or in Kwamash or wherever, desperately wanting to do this with a smartphone. You take this girl, this youngster that's just won America's Got Talent, this young girl with this magnificent voice. Her song's gone viral. That song, she's not going to, okay, she will get the royalties of that, hopefully, but you know what she is? She's known throughout the world, and that's where I think Jay is saying the shared music. This guy in Amlazi, that his song goes viral with no money, has more chance of being known, being recognized by a record company, by being picked up by somebody, so if the first one out the box goes out free, it's a hell of a lot better than keeping it at home.
The biggest single revenue generator, if there's going to be a massive upturn in the entire recording industry in the world, will be the earning of revenue from YouTube. YouTube is the #1 place where people listen to music in the entire world. And that negotiation,
a value gap, though.
Yes, and that negotiation of the value gap is the single biggest revenue generator, potential revenue generator for the recording industry right
Where
at the moment.
does that leave radio? And I think this is the question I was
well,
trying
I said
to
in the
bring.
world.
Yeah, but just generally, where does this leave public radio stations as we know them? Has technology disrupted the space to such an extent that they perhaps become irrelevant over time?
No, they can't.
Not at all,
Radio is
because
the biggest.
interestingly, some people still access radio through their phones. Right? So you have tuned in and all of those platforms where people are able to access radio. And radio, it's about understanding the DJs that are there and having a relationship with, that station, because yes, music you can access anywhere, but it's about what do you want to get out of radio? And a lot of us listen to radio for all of these many other things.
But radio for music, is that still relevant when there's so many other platforms?
Of course, FM is the biggest radio station in the world. You just can't deny its impact.
Yeah, but guys, Pandora has been, their market share has been improving dramatically. 30% of all radio is streaming radio.
Radio.
But it's still radio.
It's still
So it still counts as the same thing?
It's not streaming music. To give you an idea, when
But you have to have money to be heard on radio. That's the
whether
problem
you like
now.
it or not, it's definitely lost its relevancy.
What?
I don't listen to radio anymore. The youth don't listen to radio anymore.
You're wrong.
They make playlists on Apple Music.
Again, I will I can give you the stats around radio because I mean that's been part of my life.
I think what we should do is like go to a school after this and just go and ask the first 20 people
No,
if
but
they
which
listen to
school?
radio.
Which
Any
school?
school.
No. If you go to Crawford, and if you go to wherever, if you go to Crawford, or if you go to Red Hill,
Any
or if you go to
school.
any of those schools, no.
Not at all.
I wanna
You'll
take
be
you-
shocked.
No. I'll take you to Kwamashu, okay, and I'll take you
We,
to where
we
the.
definitely live in different environments. 'Cause,
No, we definitely do.
But can I just say,
You know,
you're
my
not going to,
audience is
with
rural.
respect, you're not going to find an advertiser of the size of Coca-Cola or Unilever advertising on a radio station unless they have statistics to back
a reach
their
perspective, I
advertising.
get you, yeah.
They're not going to spend one
Unless there's
penny.
a listenership that
Unless
they are
they know
targeting.
never once
exactly.
said that radio is not relevant anymore.
No, but you were talking about numbers, and all I'm saying is you're not going to
And you're
have
saying
a
no one listens
Unilever,
to it.
a Coca-Cola.
The youth will
But
That's
that's,
general,
there's,
because
but
you're
that's,
basically
there's
saying,
value
well, she
in
was
having this
asking radio,
conversation.
But with respect,
Yeah,
Jay,
there's
with
value-
respect,
there's value in asking the
Coca-Cola's
question for young
primary
people, doesn't
target
matter.
audience, their primary target audience are young people. In fact, people under the age of 18. They're massive advertisers on radio.
There's still numbers on radio. I never once said that. Never once said that there's not numbers on radio or TV.
But to support you,
just
Jay,
saying that.
I mean, look, my friends and the research that we've done with youth around our campaigns, they actually agree with him. They say they listen to radio,
I think we
but
live
they
in
find
such a
the adverts
diverse
annoying.
country. I think that Jay is speaking absolute sense for my ears for that kind of market. But we live in a
yes.
country that has such a huge divide that we can't look at. We're not this first world America or first world where the youth of South Africa ranges from sort of illiterate people in farms in the middle of Newcastle, you know, in KwaZulu-Natal, to the youth at the universities and the youth that are into MiCasa and the youth that are into whoever.
And that is a quagmire for advertisers and musicians,
that's the
is that there
divide.
are
So we can't
multiple
generalize.
devices and multiple engagements. And in fact, some of them happen all at the same time. So someone can be doing something, listening to the radio, being on their phone, etc. And I think that is one of the great disruptive elements of technology.
I want to take the cue from Randall from earlier, saying that he's very opinionated and we're going to put some hot topics on the table. So I'm going to go there, especially because we're talking about radio right now. I want to come back to the 90-10 rule that is now known as the cloudy policy, even if that's not the right way of phrasing it. Now, we're talking about young people who increasingly want to be globalized and integrated into a globalized world. What are your views on the 90-10 rule?
Well, I think the man's insane. Full stop, end of story. I just think that 90-10 is just like going from the sublime to the ridiculous. I really do. I personally think that a 70-30 split would have actually given us the opportunity to integrate and all of that. I mean, we've been begging for this for I don't know how long, and he just suddenly went like this with it. And, I don't know how it's faring. I'm not a great radio listener, but and so I don't know how it's faring, but I just think it's far too radical, like everything he does.
SABC is a public broadcaster.
Yeah.
Is owned by South Africans. They want to ensure that the bulk of the money is then retained by South Africans, right? And once you start looking at it from that perspective, then you start understanding that there is sense in going that route, right? Because as we know, being a public broadcaster, you have all these competing interests, but the underlying one is about you delivering to the people of South Africa.
As an artist, you'd be very stupid to not like the 90-10 principle in the hope that you will get paid your needle time royalties and that will be amazing. That for me is great, and I agree that when I heard, I thought that the South African broadcast should definitely be playing predominantly South African music. So I'm all for it. I know that a lot of the young artists get a lot more opportunity to get played.
But you said you were young a little while ago. So now you can't play both sides,
A lot
okay?
of the up and coming artists. A lot of the up and coming.
I'm sorry, I'm just being facetious.
Yeah. A lot of the upcoming younger artists than me are getting a lot more opportunity to get playlisted. MiCasa released a song a couple of weeks ago. It got declined on a South African broadcast thing, and I'm like, really? 90-10? MiCasa? Didn't make sense. But like I said, I listen to my music not on radio. I listen to radio when I'm in my car, and that's about it. And that's if I switch on the radio. And I think it's a good thing for South African music.
If any of you, and I'll take myself out of it here, walked into a record shop where there were every song in the world you could find, what would you need? You'd need curation.
Yeah.
You'd need someone to be able to guide you. You'd need a mechanism to guide you. And that's why radio will remain an essentially important mechanism, because it's going to guide you. And if you did a correlation between what's played on radio and what people are listening to when they have the opportunity to stream, it's very close. And I'm going to go way back to the beginning of the digital age in South Africa. There's a company in South Africa, I won't say who they were, who had an ad out and it said, "We have 1 million songs for you." I knew someone at the company, I phoned him, I said, people don't want 1 million, they want 10.
Exactly. I agree.
Tell them you've got the 10 that they want.
That's why playlists are so popular, right? I also, if I'm left to my own devices, I can't decide on a single song.
It sounds like we have consumers who are increasingly very demanding about wanting to consume what they want, when they want it, how they want it. And on the other hand, we have very, not only institutionalized, but very effective platforms that can deliver that demand. So what does the new business model for the music industry look like?
There's been an evolution, but in fact it's a bit of a circle. The right is still important. Where that money is earned, I gave the YouTube example, is still important. The fact that the person mustn't get ripped off or shouldn't get ripped off is still important. I can give you a list of classical composers who were ripped off, who died penniless, who weren't looked after. Exactly the same thing. And from a technological point of view, it's about access. In the same way that someone went, bought their record, then had to go to someone else's house in order to listen to it. Yeah. The access part still remains the same. So while the business model, I don't think it's so much as evolving as contemporizing something that's been around for a long time.
The industry has moved from ownership, or the consumers have moved from ownership of the physical thing or the song to access.
Yeah.
Right? The world over. Now people want to access. They want to on demand, as Jay says, that I would create my own playlist, or actually look at one that was curated on behalf of Jay. You know, and I look at what music he likes, and I look at what Randall, what PJ, or each one of the people like, and you say, okay, I like their taste or I don't. The industry is moving towards that, where you are now looking at playlists, you're looking at curated radio playlists themselves, and you look at what is trending out there, because all of these platforms are now able to give you what's trending, but you still go to radio for specific needs. You know, some of them are, they are top 20, top 40, or the DJs. In fact, the biggest attraction to radio are, in fact, the DJs.
The compilers have become the kings. And I unfortunately think they've become the kingpins.
I caught the wink. There's a wink between them, so be prepared.
Yeah, but it's true. And I'm afraid if we really want to dig out the dirt, I mean, never mind pay for play, needle time. We've got to stop pay for play.
We recently released a song that was a collaboration with a Ugandan artist, and we really think it's a great song. It's playlisted on most radio stations, and everything has been. It's been. Bon appetit. Yeah, bon appetit. Yeah. On most radio stations. And when I had another song, we have another song that we did with a Nigerian superstar that got leaked in Nigeria, and now it's just spread like wildfire. And this song that leaked has brought in more work than the other song that went out the normal way.
Yeah.
And this was my point, that I wonder, you know, if like I would love to sell more albums, and I would love to, you know, whatever, the whole shebang, but I make my money off performances. And when you put out a song and then all of a sudden the song gets leaked and you get more work through a song that got leaked than through a song that you did the legit way, this is my type of point. The reality of this shareability of music that creates a lot more opportunity than a royalty check.
What would you feel if this song became the next Thriller? Just hypothetically.
The leaked song. The leaked Nigerian song.
Hopefully it will give me a world tour. And I
Okay,
can
no,
go
hang on a
make
second,
lot of
hang on a
money.
second. No, in realistic terms now, would you absolutely feel absolutely nothing at all about the fact that your artistic license had been stolen? Would it not affect you at all?
No, there would be a lie. Of course, you would be like, hey, I would love to have made that money.
This is my question, is we never know. We never ever know.
So if I can give you a real example of what PJ is talking about. Now, either 1973 or 1974, one of the two. Dolly Parton. You all know Dolly Parton?
Yes.
She looks like a dumb blonde. She's very wealthy. She got a phone call from the world's most famous manager, Colonel Tom Parker. Elvis wanted to record I Will Always Love You. But if Elvis recorded any of your songs, he took a piece of the publishing. And the Colonel wanted 50%. And she said to the Colonel, in that wonderfully brilliant Dolly way, you know, I'm just a little country girl, Colonel. I don't know a lot about business. But I do think that all the people that come after me, all my heirs, either this is my retirement money or it's theirs. And she said no. And then along comes Whitney Houston. Record sells 40 million copies. Dolly Parton, she's doing all right.
When you get someone spread your song virally and you are not getting a cent out of it, you will feel it in your record company. You might think you as a performer suddenly get a lot of gigs, but remember there's your other business that will suffer as a result. So what I find the world over is that there's almost a struggle between the artist and what the artist want and the record company. And they have both, right? Because the record company always wants to protect and ensures that whatever is released out there, people pay for it. Artist sees that as a marketing tool. So if my song has gone viral, it means I'm going to get a lot of gigs.
Well, how do you feel then about the latest story about Taylor Swift removing her songs from Spotify? She said exactly that. She said that the record labels don't pay the artists enough for them to allow their songs to be on Spotify.
Here's the other problem we are having, and we started talking about it with Randall, which is the value gap. I agree with him that YouTube may be the next biggest thing. But what we get as the industry from YouTube is ridiculous, right?
But that's what I'm saying.
A joke. You sell you have a million views, but what are you getting in return?
The record companies are in fact right now in a negotiation with YouTube about that exact point. That the fact that from a YouTube point of view, it's attracting billions of people to their site, but the revenue that the artists are getting, it's I mean, to call it ridiculous is in fact ridiculous. So now you're saying to this individual, but hang on a second, you got 6 billion views and now you can go and play concerts and get paid for it. But hang on, are you trying to say I did no work to make the song?
And yet you're getting a lot of money through advertisement.
Of course.
You're making a killing there, right? But technology, coming back to what we're talking about, one of the things it has done, while it has been a brilliant marriage and we love it as the industry, but the technology guys have squeezed the industry out of what is reasonable to them. So while we understand that they use music as a value add, for us it is the business.
Jay made a point that I think, I mean, I've loved music since I remember listening to music, and it should make me and PJ cry. He said, when someone says to him, I want to get into the music business, he says,
No.
I mean that should honestly make you cry. Imagine someone, I don't know if you've got a grandchild, came and said, I want to be a doctor. And you said, absolutely not. There's no way you're going to be a doctor. I don't want you being a doctor. We'd say, but that's ridiculous. South Africa needs doctors. The world needs doctors. The world needs musicians.
My advice is always don't go into the music industry for the money. Go in because of the passion. Money is a byproduct of hard work,
which is exactly what I said, right?
And that's what
I feel like I'm going to get misquoted on a lot of things here today.
I wasn't misquoting you.
If you love music, go ahead and do it.
But
first, understand exactly what
think twice.
We know exactly what you're saying. My worry is, and I would say exactly the same thing to people. If you imagine that you're going to make money out of it,
become a billionaire,
then that isn't the right reason to go into it.
I think that applies to everything.
But
you go into something to make money, you won't
That's
succeed.
the point I'm trying to make. You don't go off to be a
doctor.
doctor because you're going to earn lots of money. You're going to be a doctor to save lives, to do those things, but you get remunerated for it. And similarly, a musician should go in because they're passionate, it's hard work, they bust their ass, whatever. But if they're successful, then they should be remunerated.
Fair remuneration, that's all it is, really.
This comes from my experience, which is a lot. And that is the organizations like SAMRO, RISA. I've never ever had one of these organizations, never. And I'll quote this out loud, be protecting the artist. Never. It has always been, it's like a boys' club, and it's protecting the record companies. It all boils down to having to go to the original person that ripped you off in the first place. He's not going to give me the figures. And I just think that you need to devise a way where artists can trust you. That they're not necessarily going to be fobbed off and get told, go back to the same place.
So can technology introduce transparency? Is there a way?
I'm sorry if I may.
I mean, I had a fight with RISA. You know the late Ron Battelle?
Yeah.
You must have dealt a lot with him at RISA.
Who?
Ron Battelle.
Oh, yes, I
Yeah.
have.
We literally had to beg for you to pay us directly and not go through the official source. If it goes into the official source, it's like throwing the money into a black hole. And never, ever would you guys listen to our point of view, where there were 5 of us saying we never get paid.
The very existence of SAMRO is around performance. Now, if you've had an experience with them where they've paid the publisher 100% and not paid you directly, I would think we need to take it up.
Well, I would love you to...
Oh, to the extent that you were not paid by RISA, I assume when you say paid by RISA, you mean music videos, royalties for music videos, because that's the only thing that RISA handles, which is the payment of royalties for music.
And then there's
videos.
another one called SAMPRA, isn't there?
Then there's a new one called SAMPRA.
Yeah, SAMPRA.
Right? Now, SAMPRA is the needle time organization.
We're trying to get money out of this like blood out of a stone.
Remember, they've not been paid by broadcasters yet. So the money that they've collected so far is from hospitality areas, restaurants, the gyms, and that's it, right? So that is nothing compared to the money that will flow as soon as broadcasters pay the 3%.
Record labels were created by non-musicians. They were created by businessmen that wanted to exploit musicians because there was a good business model to be able to earn from.
Yes and no.
Yes and no, okay. Oh, I'm leaning more towards the yes. Technology has allowed us as musicians to not have to depend on record labels. Yes. And this is what record labels don't like about technology, is that we can go and make a song. Our first album was invested by our record label. They gave us a studio, we brought in our own equipment, but we used their building. And since then, they've owned those masters, right? Now, I sit in my home, I sit on the plane, on my laptop, and I make a song. And I don't have to take it to anyone. I can use the internet, I can use social media.
I'm going to make a very fine point here. And again, I'm no longer with a record company, so I certainly don't have to protect them.
Yeah.
But you made your success through a record company. Radiohead did exactly the same thing. Recently, they released an album. They were no longer with a record company. They released it on the internet. They said the value of an album is, call it £5, but you make the choice on how much you want to pay for this. But they were already Radiohead. EMI had already invested 100 hell of a lot of money in their success. The statistics are clear. We must ask how many artists have been internationally or even locally successful without the benefit of the record company.
Through technology, we don't have to depend on the businessmen that are not musicians, that are businessmen in the music world. We can become the businessmen of our own business and become our own record companies and not have to
So let me pivot the question. How does technology change the distribution channels in the industry?
It makes it easier for someone, like as Jay says, to self-release, right? That's what it does. It provides that platform for anyone to, in the computer, create a song, upload it. And that's it. But you forget that in the music business, there are a lot of revenue opportunities that are rights-based, which means you will focus on the one revenue stream and miss out on the others if you are not setting yourself up as a business.
South African record companies have a history, and I am part of that history. So this is my own experience, is that if PJ Powers releases a Christmas album, whether it's Jabulani or Feel So Strong or World in Union or any of the other, Sanbonani, any other, the big hits, okay, at the same time as Tina Turner or Celine Dion or Whitney Houston, the record company will undoubtedly spend more money on. I walked into Look and Listen once, okay, which doesn't exist anymore, and I said, can't you do a poster? And they said, no, the record companies only want us to use international posters. The record companies, you know, it's all very well, I feel very sorry for them now, because as Jay says, now you can become your own record company. But for years, record companies have abused artists. I don't do hard copy anymore. I print a certain amount for the rural areas when I go into them, and we sell at the concerts, and otherwise I'm on digital. And the reason being because A, it's more effective, B, it's more transparent, and C, you know, my second shot at my career, it was digital that broke it.
It's completely reversed. Physical has completely reversed to digital, completely. Whereas we used to sell predominantly about 80% of our music physical 3 years ago. With our latest album, it changed to about 70-30 in favor.
But what you should then again be cognizant of is it should give you an indication of who your target audience are, of who's buying.
Target audience, but also
Because it's not as though the majority of South Africans have bandwidth. So you
But
are.
it increases in leaps
Can
and
I just
bounds.
say? Can I just say?
the penetration is now
penetration
sitting at
is
about 15%.
But
And
never
what will it
mind
be
the
by the end of next year?
But it's not about the penetration.
20.
It's about the cost of getting online.
No,
Is
but
that
it's-
South Africa or just
you know,
because in Africa?
I
isn't
used to
it?
buy CDs every month.
Yeah.
Every month with my band member Mo. We used to stop at the airport, to that airport shop, buy CDs. Head to Musica, buy CDs. My car doesn't have a CD player. My laptop doesn't have a CD player.
But with respect, are you a 15-year-old kid in KwaMashu?
No, but I feel like you guys are holding on to what's left.
No, we're
Move
not
on with the
holding on to
times.
what's left.
Move on to
What
the
we
times.
want,
Back
we
kids,
want to know
right?
that if Nati, when did Nati? 2 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, almost 2 years ago.
2 years ago, right? Nati.
Yeah.
Was that the biggest selling record of that year?
Of last year.
Yes.
Yes.
150,000 copies, if I'm not mistaken, right? How much of that was on download? You can't try and force a square peg into a round hole. What you've got to do is, if a song's a hit and people want to buy it, give them the format that they can utilize, that they can afford.
The other thing with physical, which is killing us, is that the retailers of music are closing down. And those that are remaining are not focused on music, are not focused on music. They had to diversify. That makes the accessibility on physical limited.
So what does the future retail of music look like? If we're saying brick
going
and mortar,
digital as well.
it's all going to be digital.
I think that asking, the answer to what the future of the music industry looks like is a bit like particle physics. If you're a professor of particle physics and you say you know what's going on, you don't. I don't think anybody knows what the future is. To give you one example, who's opening up stores on the high street in the US at the moment? Physical bricks and mortar stores. Amazon.
I was going to say Amazon.
Amazon are opening physical bricks and mortar stores for one reason alone. Human beings want to try stuff on. They want to touch and feel it. The only part of the physical industry worldwide that shows any significant growth, and we're talking, yes, it's 5% of the total industry, but it's showing growth year on year of between 80 and 150%, vinyl.
But vinyl is for the elite, it's for the trendy, and not what I won't entertain vinyl here because it's all made overseas, which means we have more unemployment
here. But that's not
here.
the point I'm trying to make. The point I'm trying to make is that an artifact, even though it's a small number, I gave you the figures, 5%, but there's growth. And that growth can't come from old people like me, the three of us.
It does, you've got vinyl,
No,
I guarantee you.
it can't only come from
you've got vinyl,
With
haven't you?
respect, let me
Because
just
you're
finish.
trendy and
No, let me finish. A growth of 5% in the US can't come from old people buying the same record over and over again. There
made
are
vinyl,
kids
last year.
buying vinyl.
300.
Exactly.
We sold all of them. I think becoming a successful brand, which was my initial point, is probably the most exciting business model any musician could ever try and aspire to achieve. Try and create an amazing brand that you can create other things from. And that's the thing, like, with all due respect, like, I don't get excited if Samro calls me. Samro's never called me, but I don't get excited. I will never get excited. I will always see it as like a Christmas bonus. It's like, woohoo!
Hang on a second, how
Some
long
money.
have you been in the industry? When you've been in the industry for 32 years,
Yeah.
and they haven't paid you for 32 years,
yeah,
and you know what they
Can you
owe you,
imagine?
you're going to get very excited.
I don't have a law degree and I'm far too old to start now. But maybe Nhlanhla should leave RISA and then make sure that one of your songs gets into a US movie, and when you get that call from Samro, life will change.
All the other musicians can also have that aspiration of maybe getting into a movie. But you know what? I'm not getting into a movie anytime now. If it happens, it happens. Let's talk reality. Reality right now is that my song, probably in the top 3 most played South African artists in this country, that stuff doesn't excite me. What excites me is becoming an influencer, becoming a brand that other brands say, hey, you know what? This guy speaks to a cool market. He's got a cool name. So we're going to pay him to do something for us together.
That's an alternative
And that
model.
for me is way more exciting than trying to hope that my song will make it onto a
But
Hollywood
hang on a
movie.
second, Jay, I think it's a very interesting debate, and I'm really pleased that and the record companies and the likes of RISA and the likes of have had to wake up.
Yes, we
I'm-
did.
I must be perfectly honest. I absolutely am completely pro digital, the transparency of it, and I think that Jay is absolutely right, because I know that the PJ Powers as a brand is actually bigger than her music. Which irritates me, but I'm trying to build the music to be as big as the brand, because the brand is bigger than the music right now. You know, it's a brand. The fact that the brand was already there that's the reason I was able to make the comeback. So I think it is extremely important to build a brand and guard it with your life.
Jay's final
My
comment?
last point is educate yourself in this industry, like we all mentioned. Try your best. Hopefully you'll be surrounded with some people that will educate you. Take care of every single penny that you make, which I do. And I have a business that runs a very successful band in this continent that collects from everywhere, and we cherish every single penny we make.
Wonderful.
Yeah, it's called the
Wonderful.
music business.
And
That's
we
what I
need
always
people
try and
like
tell
you
you.
who will be
Nhlanhla,
the
you can't
champions.
have a comment after everybody's last comment. It doesn't work like that. Randall, oh, no, it doesn't work like that.
You said when you
I've
started,
got a
I
flight
must
to
comment
catch.
as much as I can. And I'm doing exactly that and you're complaining.
Randall?
I have a question, and luckily I'm not directly in the record industry anymore. But my question is, shouldn't the tech people look after tech? The business people look after business, and I'm not saying negate as an artist thinking about business. And artists think about great records, because one great record will change everything.
I get where Randall's coming from. The stats support whatever he's saying, so clearly he's right. But I think there is a space for crossover. You know, for me, from the outside, I'm not from this industry. It was a very interesting conversation. And from our perspective, we just want to understand from partners that can assist the music industry, how do we go about doing that? How can we better assist? How can we get involved? That's just what I want to understand. And it gave me a very good idea of how to do that from this conversation. So thank you.
As always, great conversation, great guests, great food. It's been fantastic. It's Masters of Innovation. For CNBC Africa, I'm Nozi Pombanda. Thank you so much.